Dimension W, Episode 9, The Key to Adrastea. Or Adrastea. Can't really pronounce that too well. But, fun episode. I really enjoyed the flashbacks of this one. I think it was really good, just like with Kyoma's episode where we initially learned his backstory and his relationship from the past. I think this episode was really great, showing a lot of other characters' backstories and how even a character that was newly introduced in this episode, we kind of got their backstory as a villain as well. So I thought that was actually really cool. So we get the new character, Meyer, I just remember his last name, but he shows up in the past. He's caused issues with Prince Salva. He was there at least during the initial incident with Prince Y, and he was also there with Loser. I totally forgot his old name, but we find out who Loser really is and where he was initially when everything kind of went crazy. And then we get a little bit more of Kyoma's backstory and just seeing kind of one of the big moments for his character in the past when war first broke out and him going to see his fiance and exactly kind of seeing her in this different position and not exactly in the greatest health. But I love what they did with this one, and we kind of got an answer, because one of the big things I said was, what if they used her head or part of her brain for Mira? And we find out that Mira was made as the body for Kyoma's ex-wife or ex-fiance, I guess. And I thought that was really cool. And they kind of they mentioned that she wasn't the only one. It was like all of the prototype bodies, basically all of the first robots, really first kind of humanistic robots, were made for that purpose. And ultimately, because of whatever happened with the coil, it of course didn't kind of pan out that way, but that was the plan. And I thought that's actually really cool to get that answer. And they mentioned how they're the exact same measurements and everything, and Mira was going to be this whole new body. So it still makes me wonder if they may or may not have used part of her brain to create Mira and give her such a wide personality. And I think a great reason, especially in this episode now, I think a great reason, because I didn't think of this before, but with Luai being mostly robotic at this point because of his accident, it kind of makes you wonder. It's like, okay, well, he was born human, and then he kind of became mostly robot because of the accident where the guy tried to kill Prince Salva, and he retaliates. It's like, kill this guy, and then of course Prince Luai is coming down the steps at the same time, and he gets hit. And so I was surprised he even survived, because the way they showed him with just his hand sticking out, I'm like, how did he not have nothing? It was like they showed him with bandages over his eye when he was in that pod thing. But I'm like, how is he even that okay? Because it looked like he was just completely crushed. But then the next scene, and I guess that just was because his hand got knocked off maybe. But in the next scene they show him Prince Salva was hugging him and crying, and his head is still intact and everything. But I thought it was great to get these backstories. We find out that this sphere is this character, Meyer, which I was like, it has to embody someone. And it turns out to be a brand new character who is a bit of a genius, but definitely an evil genius. And so we have this guy who, seemingly he wanted to free Dr. Yurizaki, Mr. Dr. Yurizaki, and he didn't go about it in the nicest way possible. And because of what he did, that's what led to Loser being who he is today, because something went wrong. And he mentions when he and his daughter open up the giant vault looking door, it's complete nothingness, and he refers to the woman in the flashback who is seemingly in a relationship with him. I believe her name was Sophie. And he was like, did you set off some device or whatever, and then it created absolute nothingness in this area. And that's also the area that Kyoma made it through, and we see one of his drill needles, I forgot the exact name for him, but we see one of those. We get a little bit of science on that, which I thought was very cool. And it was they can theoretically go to I remember he said it was called the third cosmic speed is what they called it, but it had a specific definition. It was something 3,000 kilometers an hour or something crazy, which is that's a huge distance. That's insane, especially for these little needles as well, because they're so tiny. But I thought that was actually very awesome that they kind of gave them a bit of explanation And we find out Loser is also the one who created the shields that Kyoma was kind of using the needles to fight through it in the beginning, or in that flashback. So it's like, that's really cool. He was the one who created shields. We got to see a pretty cool display of power from Loser in this episode. He didn't do too much as far as an actual fight, but when he did like the fire move and he kind of spun in a circle and like basically turned the ground to lava a little bit to kind of cut the car off, I was like, that's actually very cool. That looked really sweet. We find out that he's using numbers for his coils, which I guess should have been a bit obvious, but I just assumed he was making a weapon because I thought if he used coils on himself, it would be a little bit too experimental, it would be a bit too dangerous. But at the same time, I guess we still don't really know how individual people control coils to begin with, so I guess it does make sense that he'd use numbers because he's, even if they have more power, he still knows how to control a coil. So I thought it was really cool to see that he was using numbers on himself. So he has numbers in both his hands, both his feet, and Meyer mentions that they're in his legs as well. So he's looking for one more, and I don't know if that's because he doesn't have, like in the middle of his body, we don't know if he's really like being kept alive through organic organs or if it's mechanical stuff. Like Lawai, I would assume doesn't really have too many organs. I mean, I would assume he's like kind of half and half. But with Loser, when he explains it, like, oh, I have no arms and no legs, we see like half his face is pretty much gone as well, like completely, and he has to use that little gold plate to keep it together. It kind of makes you wonder how much, how many of his, real organs even exist at this point. I would assume you can't survive without a heart. But that's, once again, that's one of those things we don't really know about the universe, how far a certain technology has truly come. And, I guess we'll kind of have to wait and see that answer. But I just love the fact that we got some interesting info. We got to see what happened with Lawai. One thing that I thought was weird is that Lashti was actually seemingly like the same age as the prince, which I thought was really weird. She may have been like slightly taller than him, but they looked like they were the exact same age. Her and Prince Lawai, of course. But I thought her and Prince Salva were like the exact same age, but Salva was like way taller than both of them. And I was like, that's really weird to me. I thought that she was about around the same age as him, and then, Prince Lawai was way younger. But I think because he's a robot, that's why it looks that way. So it kind of confused me when I first saw it. And I was like, oh, like honestly, I just realized like that's why he looks so young, because technically he doesn't age. He's older than he looks because of the time frame. And I would say it would have to have been like maybe 12. That it looks like it was like 12 years ago with how young she was. Like she could be in her 20s, so it could have only been like 10 years ago. But even then, he would look much older. So it was just interesting. Like, oh, like they're actually like the same age. So that really surprised me. And they're really stupid. Like it didn't make any sense. But I guess this is just what they're doing with her character. But when Salva was like, hey, Lawai, we should go to the prince. And he's like, alright. And then he just slapped her in the face and was like, you come too. I was like, why did he just slap her in the face? It made no sense to me. But all I could think of was when they first introduced them, and all he said was bind. And she got like, the red cheeks and stuff. And I'm like, I guess he was introducing S&M super early. Like, I was so confused. I was like, why did he just slap her in the face? Like, it was just a normal conversation, just like, boom. Hey, you come with us too. It's like, he could have just said, why don't you come with us? He didn't have to like slap her straight in the face. But apparently they have some weird relationship that they haven't exactly explored to its full extent. But that was really weird to me. I was like, there's a reason he just slapped her. And I feel like it was kind of part of what we saw when they first introduced, when he basically kind of gives her an orgasm by just saying bind. So I was like, I don't really understand that, but I feel like it has to do with whatever weird sort of sexual relationship they have that hasn't really been explored yet. But it was funny, but it was also just like, why did that happen? It seemed so out of place. He just slapped her and was like, all right, let's go. I was like, that's weird. That makes no sense. But it was really cool getting this backstory, and by the end, Kyoma figures everything out. He escapes. Or at least Mira says that she's going to fight to help him escape. So he's still in there technically, but she did kind of help him a little bit, and she kind of got Meyer away from him for a second. And Meyer wants the answer out of him Loser knows that he has the answer, and we have to find out what the heck the answer is, because he made it through that door, and maybe that's why he can't remember, because he was there during, once it became absolute nothingness. Maybe he escaped at like the last second or something, because someone came to rescue him, and because when he wakes up, he's inside of that bed, but all he remembers is like that very first initial attack. Like, he destroyed those two robots, he's in midair, and it's like, I can't remember anything beyond that. But he remembers all his friends, and like what he mentions to Loser, it was like, you must be an enemy because I don't remember you from before, so you must have been there after the attack started. So I thought that was pretty cool too, but they kind of went into like full explanation, which I thought they would do like just a little hint, but we kind of got his full backstory, and we still don't know, of course, how everything went crazy, but he knows that the answer, like the only person that can really find the answer to what's happened on this island is Kyoma. So I would assume that he kind of pushed Sophie's hand, and she is the reason, he's the reason that that happened, which a lot of people guess, like he was probably the reason the whole island kind of got destroyed to begin with. And it makes sense. He's the main character. That's generally how it goes. But I'm looking forward to getting some more answers. I like the way they did it. We got a very small hint as to what's going to happen with KK and the other assassin. Because when Loser was talking, like, of all the people on this island, and it just flashes to everyone, and it showed the dude on the table. At first I was like, I don't understand what's happening. Then I realized, like, oh, that's the guy, and that was KK. Because it confused me that he was in a full, like, surgeon outfit. I was like, what is that from? And then I was like, oh, that's KK. Because he was, like, on a table and everything. It completely confused me when I first saw it. Because I was like, okay, I know who that is. But why is he in that weird situation? It's like, oh, the guy who... apparently in that second suitcase was his full his full-on surgeon outfit, I guess. Like, one case was his items, and then other case was clothing, I guess. But we got the tiniest little hint there. Like, his mouth, the guy has his mouth with bandages wrapped around. It looked like it went from his mouth down to, like, probably, like, right here, like, on his shoulders. But I don't know. Like, that was really weird. I was like, okay, real tiny clue as to what's going to happen to that guy, but it was really weird. I was like, something is about to happen. I don't know if he's going to turn him into some weird sort of creature, if he's going to, like, implant coils inside of him, or just something. I feel like something crazy is going to happen, and he's going to turn him into some sort of crazy creature. I feel like that's where that's going. Like, he's going to become, like, some crazy Dimension W type monster or something crazy like that. But certainly enjoyed this episode. I'm curious to see what happens with Meyer, because he's conscious as this sphere, but at the same time, he's still just a sphere. When he kind of absorbs someone, he can show his head as his form, which I thought was really cool when they had his head, and then it was almost like, it was kind of like the entire cosmos a little bit as his outfit, and I thought that was kind of cool. It kind of reminded me of Spawn a little bit, how it was kind of, the outfit was sort of waving around. I was like, that kind of makes me think of Spawn's cape when he wraps it around him, but it still moves like crazy. So I thought that looked visually pretty cool, but I'm curious to see if he's going to end up possibly turning back. I would assume he's going to stay as this sphere and he's not going to turn into his human form again, but at the same time, it's Dimension W. Seemingly anything can happen. We already had it in the, we've seen examples of things going haywire, and it creates stacks of bodies and crazy stuff, which they did in this episode, which I thought was kind of cool. When he killed the guy, and he basically put a code word inside of the video he was going to play for the people, for the Grendel, and then he says, like, mass times speed plus Dimension W or something like that, a different order, but he does that, and then that triggers the explosion, and it sets off that phone with the coil, and that transforms that guy's body into, like, a pile of bodies, it looked like. So we've seen examples of what Dimension W can do. We've seen alternate dimensions come into existence and crazy stuff like that. And I guess technically Dimension W is an alternate dimension. So he might get his physical form back, or like sort of that weird cosmic form that we saw. He might end up like that, but I don't think that'll happen anytime soon, if it happens at all. But definitely excited for this next episode. Of course, want to know what you guys thought about it, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts, and what do you guys think happened? What did Kyoma do when he got past that door? Because I'm assuming he was attacked. He attacked somebody. I mean, that has to be the case. But considering Loser and the other people he was with, those were the only guys that didn't want to join Meyer. So I have to assume that maybe things kind of got mixed up and Kyoma was just attacking everyone, because Loser did decide, like, alright, basically I don't want anyone here to die and I don't want to die, so that's why he decided to join him. But then, that's kind of where it cuts off. Is like, what do you need me to do? And then we don't get any answers after that. So I feel like Kyoma may have gone in there kind of guns blazing in a sense, and that's what forced the woman Sophie to kind of set off nothingness somehow, and that's what destroyed, that's what kind of sent Loser into the position that he's in, and that's why Kyoma has no memory, but they were just in different locations, so Kyoma got out just with memory loss, and Loser just got, like, obliterated and almost died from it. So I feel like that's what happened. Kyoma went in, kind of doing his mission, but didn't realize who was really bad, and he kind of just thought all of these people were working with Meyer, and so he was just trying to kill everybody, and that's when Sophia tried to protect whoever she could. But we'll see what happens. I don't know if we'll get the truth in the very next episode. I think the next one will really focus a lot on Mira, and kind of what she does and doesn't remember. She has, like, her first little memory, but considering how humanistic she is as a AI, we could get flashbacks for her from what little bits and pieces she does remember, about working for or living with Dr. Yurizaki, and maybe some of the things he said about his wife and daughter, which might give us a couple more hints. But like I said, I definitely want to know what you guys think happened with Kyoma, and how everything went down on the island, and of course what you guys thought about this episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.